Welcome back to Chess Tactic Today. In Round 7 of the FIDE Grand Swiss 2025, Hans Niemann with white takes on Turkey's young prodigy Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus. Right from the start, Niemann dives into the sharp Petrov, grabbing the e5 pawn and sparking chaos in the center. Both sides throw pieces forward, pawns fly, and by move 20 the board is on fire with tactics. Niemann seizes the initiative, unleashing queen checks and knight jumps to rip open the black king. This one's a tactical thriller you don't want to miss. And we're off! Niemann opens with pawn to e4, the king's pawn opening, immediately staking a claim in the center and opening lines for his queen and bishop. Erdogmus responds in kind with pawn to e5. This is the most classical and principled reply, leading to a symmetrical and open game. White develops the knight to f3, a standard move that attacks black's e5 pawn and prepares for castling kingside. This is the main line of the open game, but black chooses the Petrov defense with knight to f6. Instead of defending the e5 pawn, black counterattacks white's e4 pawn. This is a solid, well-respected opening, known for its DRA wish reputation at the top level, but it can hide some serious tactical venom. Niemann accepts the challenge, and the knight takes the pawn on e5. This is the main line of the Petrov, and it looks like white is winning a pawn, but there's a well-known trick here. Exactly as planned, black plays pawn to d6, kicking the white knight. The key here is that black must play this move before recapturing the pawn on e4. The knight retreats to f3, and now the symmetry is about to be restored. And now black's knight takes the pawn on e4. Both sides have regained their material, and we are in a very balanced, classical position. White plays pawn to d4, building a strong pawn center. This is the central idea for white in the Petrov. Use the extra tempo to build a space advantage. Black immediately mirrors the move with pawn to d5, challenging white's control of the center and keeping the position stable. Niemann develops his light-squared bishop to d3, a perfect square. It controls key diagonals and prepares for castling. In response, Erdogmus develops his knight to c6, adding another defender to the d5 pawn and preparing to control the center. White castles kingside, getting the king to safety early. This is a crucial step in any opening, and Niemann does it without delay. Black develops the bishop to g4, putting an immediate pin on the f3 knight. This is a very active move, creating instant pressure on white's central control. White plays pawn to c3, a quiet but very useful move. It supports the d4 pawn and prepares to expand on the queen side if needed. And here we go. Black plays the aggressive pawn to f5. This move locks down the e4 square and signals that Erdogmus is not here for a quiet game. He's ready to fight for the initiative, even if it weakens his own king's position slightly. Niemann develops his queenside knight to d2. This is a flexible move supporting the f3 knight and preparing to challenge black's central grip. Erdogmus brings his queen to f6. This move does two things. It adds more pressure on the center and prepares for a very aggressive plan. Watch where black's king is about to go. White's queen swings over to a 4, putting pressure on the c6 knight and eyeing black's queenside. Niemann is creating threats of his own, asking black, "Are you sure you want to go on this adventure?" And there it is. Black castles queenside, throwing down the gauntlet. This is no longer a quiet strategic battle. It's an all-out race. With kings on opposite sides of the board, the player who can generate the faster attack will win. The narrative of this game has just been set in stone. Niemann immediately strikes back with bishop to b5. He's targeting the c6 knight, which is a key defender of black's queenside and the d5 pawn. The tension is ramping up. Erdogmus decides to resolve the tension himself. Knight takes knight on d2. This simplifies the position slightly, but also opens up lines for white. Niemann recaptures with his own knight. Now, white's knight on d2 is a solid piece, controlling key squares and supporting a potential attack. No hesitation from black pawn to f4. continuing the assault on the king's side. Erdogmus is signaling that his attack is coming, and it's coming fast. This pawn is a real headache for white. White brings the rook to e1. A very sensible move. It prepares to defend the king side and puts pressure on the e5 pawn. Niemann is trying to hold the fort while looking for counterplay. Wow, black just will not let up. Pawn to f3 is a battering ram, trying to smash open the defenses around the white king. This move is incredibly dangerous. It's a race against time. Can Niemann survive this relentless kingside storm? Niemann plays pawn to h3, challenging the bishop on g4. He has to kick this piece away to relieve some of the pressure on his pinned knight. The bishop retreats to h5, keeping the pin alive and maintaining the pressure. Black is giving white no breathing room at all. A big decision. White's bishop takes the knight on c6. This move damages black's pawn structure, creating doubled pawns, but it also gives up the bishop pair. A classic trade-off. Black recaptures with the b-pawn. The pawn structure is weakened, but the b-file is now open for black's rook, which could become a new avenue of attack. What a move! Niemann swings his rook up to e5. This is a fantastic multi-purpose move. It attacks the bishop on h5 and prepares to swing over to the g-file to defend the king. This is high-level defense and counterattack in one. Black's queen slides to g6, creating a direct threat of checkmate on g2. The pressure is immense. Now, how does white respond? Forced, but effective. White plays pawn to g3, shutting the door on the immediate checkmate threat. This creates some light square weaknesses around the king, but it was absolutely necessary. Black's bishop develops to d6, attacking the rook on e5. Erdogmus is relentless, not giving Niemann a moment to breathe. The knight reroutes to b3. From here, it can jump to c5 or a5, creating serious problems for black's king. Niemann is masterfully shifting from defense to offense. Black brings the rook to f8. The plan is clear. Pile up on the f-file and continue the attack on the white king. But black's own king is starting to look a little exposed. A beautiful defensive move. Bishop to e3 blocks the e-file and shores up the white position. It feels like Niemann has weathered the worst of the storm and is now consolidating. Black brings the other rook to the e-file, challenging white's control. But time is running out, and white's counterattack is looking more and more dangerous. And Niemann strikes. The queen swoops in and takes the pawn on c6. This is a huge move. Not only does it win a pawn, but it brings the white queen dangerously close to the black king. The tide is turning. Black's bishop takes the rook on e5, winning material back. But is it enough? The black king is looking very lonely over there. White's queen gives a check on a8. The attack is on. The black king is forced to step forward into the open. The king moves to d7. It's out of the back rank, but it's walking into a minefield. The knight jumps to c5 with check. Another piece joins the attack. The coordination of white's pieces is simply beautiful. The king is forced to e7. It's trying to run, but there are no safe squares left. Niemann plays queen to d5, a fantastic move, threatening the bishop on h5 and setting up even more deadly discovered checks. The pressure is suffocating. Black's queen moves to f5, desperately trying to shield the king and hold the position together. But a thunderbolt is about to strike. And here it is, the move that ends the game. White plays bishop to g5, check. At first glance, this might look like just a check, but pause and admire the genius. This is a spectacular, crushing blow. It deflects the queen from the defense of the f6 square and sets up a devastating attack that will win the game on the spot. A truly brilliant find. Black is forced to block with the rook on f6. There was no other way to get out of check. And now pawn takes bishop on e5. This opens up the d-file, and suddenly the black king is caught in a fatal crossfire. It's all over. The queen takes the bishop, but it's a final desperate act. White has a forced win. Pawn takes rook on f6 with a discovered check from the queen. This wins the black queen and completely shatters the defense. With this final elegant blow, black resigns the game. What a finish. An absolutely stunning performance by Hans Niemann. He weathered a ferocious attack and then unleashed a brilliant counterattack of his own, capped off by that gorgeous bishop sacrifice. A fantastic game that shows us how to turn defense into a decisive victory. Thanks for watching Chess Tactic Today.